Welcome back to the channel. I'm pretty positive that this one is going to get a lot of people commenting, and I got a feeling a lot of you are probably going to be disagreeing with a lot of my choices. I'm going to be ranking metal subgenres. Now, I need to clarify before we get into this is just my opinion. This is just my opinion. It amazes me that I still have to say things like this, but it's just my opinion. I'm not trying to say it's fact. My ranking is not going to be based on importance or influence, because if that were the case, then anyone could do this ranking. Do you know what I mean? We all know how, each genre influenced others. So this is purely going to be based on my personal preferences. I'm going to be ranking it sheerly in terms of the subgenres that I listen to the most and the ones that I listen to the least. Anyway, I think you understand what I'm going for. Anyway, fuck that shit. We're getting straight into this. Alternative metal is the first one that we're looking at. Now, I really got into metal during the 90s, which was obviously when alternative metal was really hitting its peak. Of course, we had bands like Smashing Pumpkins, Soundgarden, Faith No More, White Zombie, right up until La Sexorcisto, including La Sexorcisto, would have definitely been in the alternative metal scene. After that, they got much more into the industrial and straight up metal side of things. Of course, there were other bands like Jane's Addiction, Stone Temple Pilots. I guess you could throw Alice in Chains and bands like that in there. I like a lot of alternative metal. There's a lot of alternative metal bands that I don't like, but I do enjoy a lot of alternative metal. I think the problem with some of it ranges from the... It can range from the very commercial to the very experimental, and you got a lot in between. But for what it is, I actually do enjoy a hell of a lot of alternative metal bands. And for that reason, I'm going to put them in the A tier. Oh, sounded almost rude. Next up, we have black metal. This is quite an interesting one for me. I've only really started delving into black metal and death metal, which we'll get to later on, in the last 4 or 5 years. I've always kind of, I've always experimented, had a little go. There's definitely a lot of bands that I've been listening to for a very, very long time, but I was one of those people who always loved the instrumentation of both genres, but was put off by the vocals. However, something seems to have gone on in my brain over the last, couple of years that really seems to have started to click with it. Of course, we have bands like Mayhem, Dark Throne, Burzum, a very controversial figure. In fact, black metal is probably one of the most controversial subgenres there are, not just in metal, in music in general, for obvious reasons. Now, I don't listen to black metal a huge amount, but I have to say there are times when only black metal will do, and the more that I'm getting into it, the more that I'm discovering just how many great bands there are. I do like a lot of the atmospheric stuff. In fact, actually, here I have my Passage de Iver. I'd never pronounced that right, but De Berg. This is one of my favourite albums of 2024. If you haven't checked this out, do. It's an absolutely incredible album. Definitely a subgenre that I'm really starting to appreciate. Been listening to more and more, and when I do, it really satisfies. It hits the spot. I'm going to put that also in A tier. I'll put it behind alternative metal purely because I've been listening to alternative metal so much longer, and therefore it means a little more to me, but there we go. Now, moving on to a very controversial one, purely because of how many people I know detest this subgenre, and that is deathcore. Of course, we have bands like Slaughter to Prevail would be the most obvious one right now. I do actually enjoy some of Slaughter to Prevail. Some of it's really moronic. When they're one of those bands like Baba Yaga, 1984, Viking, I think those songs are absolute bangers. I love those songs. That shows a lot of promise for the band. Then you've got other stuff, like some of the later singles I've really not been that impressed with. They're very hit or miss. This is also a genre that is it's really identified by the need to have the huge breakdown as part of the song. Which, when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's bad. Of course, you have bands like Suicide Silence. That would have been the biggest one from years ago. Black Dahlia, I guess they'd shown it. Shadow of Intent, I actually caught them live in January supporting Cattle Decapitation. They were fucking great. I really enjoyed that band a lot. Fit for an Autopsy, Job for a Cowboy, Chelsea Grin, all of these sorts of bands. This is not one of my favourite genres, but I'm not as against it as a lot of people seem to be. I know a ton of you are going to slate this in the comments because I've read all the comments from you guys in the past, so I know how much it really does grate on a lot of you. However, that being said, I will put it in C tier. I'm not trying to write off any of these subgenres. I think what happens with a lot of these is one thing I have noticed going through all of this, I guarantee there are bands in every single one of these subgenres that I do enjoy. But, you know, overall deathcore is not one that I listen to a huge amount. So, death metal, as I've already pointed out with black metal, something that I've only recently been really starting to get into, and I'm really enjoying death metal. I fucking love death metal, in fact. Of course, the most obvious would be Cannibal Corpse. There's a reason they're at the top of the tree. They've been consistent for, 30 years? Maybe, no, probably longer than that. And they're probably getting towards 40 years. They just write incredibly great songs. Of course, you've got stuff like Morbid Angel, a band that I've really enjoyed listening to. So many of their classics are classics for a reason. They're very, they really push the boundaries, really help to push things forward. My favourite death metal band probably would be Immolation. I just love that band. Got a sound all to their own. I just love the sinister vibe to them. More modern stuff would be bands, I guess, like Fulci, 200 Stab Wounds. I enjoy a lot of that stuff as well. Death metal is definitely a genre that I have got a lot more time for. I really do enjoy it. I always love the instrumentation. It's just brutal. It's in your face. I fucking love it. And for that, I'm going to put that in A tier between black metal and alternative metal. Now, Djent. This is an interesting one because Djent is an incredibly influential subgenre. And I guess the band that would immediately spring to mind would be Meshuggah. I don't listen to a lot of Djent. I kind of find it a bit dull, if I'm honest with you. I appreciate the musicianship, but it's almost like a lot of those crazy shredders back in the 80s, you know, the Shrapnel Records kind of shredders. A lot of it's great technically. I'm very impressed with how well they can play, but it doesn't make me feel anything. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of how I feel about it with Djent. Having said that, Meshuggah, fantastic band. Periphery did some amazing stuff. Who other bands? Who other bands? Are you a band? Veil of Maya had some great stuff. Spirit Box. I found Spirit Box kind of soulless. I just can't get into them really. Loathe, they're a British band. I know that I guess they'd be lumped in with Djent to a certain extent. I think they've actually done some really great stuff. A lot of great bands. Ginger, I can't really get into them, to be honest. Djent, for me, I completely appreciate its influence, but it's not something that I really relate to a great deal. I'm going to put it in C tier, ahead of deathcore. But next up we have doom metal. I do like me some doom. Now, of course, the obvious one would be Black Sabbath, the creators of the subgenre, essentially, with Masters of Reality. My favourite Black Sabbath album, but we've also got, you know, Saint Vitus, Obsessed, Trouble, Pentagram. We've got Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride, Electric Wizard. Fuck me, Electric Wizard were great. They got some goddamn riffs, man. Candlemass, of course, they were great as well. Sleep are an incredible band. I love listening to Sleep. The Sciences from 2018, I think it was. That was a great one. That was. Doom. Yeah, I've got a lot of time for Doom. I do like the repetitiveness of the riffs. I do like the idea of that hypnotic nature of them just getting into a groove and just riding on it for hours. Doom metal. I'm going to put doom metal in B tier. I've definitely got a lot of time for doom metal, but I have to be definitely in a specific frame of mind. Folk metal. I'm going to have to look up this because I'll say right now, folk metal is not a favourite for me. Fintroll, Tiresias, Elstorm. I've heard a lot of folk metal over the years, but I have to say it really doesn't grab me. That, you know, maybe I'm sort of like associating it more with the pirate metal thing, but yeah, folk metal. It's I guess you could put bands like Primordial in the folk metal side of things. They're more veering towards the black metal side of it. You know, I fucking love Primordial. They're a great band. Winter Sun, they had some okay. Agalok, if you could put, again, I'd put them more towards the black metal side of things myself. But Yeah, Skyclad. I remember that. I remember seeing Skyclad in Kerrang magazine all the time when I was younger. But I'm delaying the inevitable. It's going in D tier. If you like it, good on you. It's one of those genres that's never really done it for me. Next up, we have Grindcore. Another interesting one, because one of my favourite bands of all time is Napalm Death. I absolutely adore them. The fathers, or the godfathers maybe, of Grindcore. And I love Napalm Death. Then you've got bands like Brutal Truth. Of course, you've got bands like Pig Destroyer, Terrorizer, very, very influential in the early grindcore scene. Repulsion were the first band. Napalm Death completely support that as well. They've always kind of given them a shout out on all of their albums. But Nasum, Pig Destroyer, I think I've already mentioned. Agoraphobic, Nosebleed, Carcass, their early stuff. Brutal Truth, I've already said. Hell, Full of Hell, of course. Anal Cunt. How can you not like that? Cephalic Carnage. I do like grindcore. Actually, thinking about it, I really like grindcore. I'd put grindcore actually above doom metal. Or would I put it in A tier? You know what? No, I'm going to put it up in A tier. I do like me some grindcore, I have to say. It's just occurred to me there's nothing here for groove metal, because groove metal would definitely be in S tier for me. That's a bit of a shame. Okay, next up we've got industrial metal, and this one's actually quite a surprising one for me, because I think this one's actually going to have to go in S tier. I've never really thought about S tier. I've never really thought about industrial metal being like a favourite of mine, but going through some of these lists, I mean, Nine Inch Nails, Ministry, Fear Factory I fucking love, Godflesh are amazing, Strapping Young Lad, one of my favourite bands of all time, Rammstein, of course, I love a lot of Rammstein. Static X had some great stuff. Frontline Assembly, Killing Joke, White Zombie. I really fucking enjoy a lot of this. I mean, Einstürzende Neubauten. Is that how you pronounce it? If it is, that's the first time I've ever got that right. Prong, I guess you could put some of their stuff in. Nail Bomb, Misery Loves Company, Fudge Tunnel. Lindemann. I thought Lindemann was a good side project myself. I think I'm going to have to put this in S tier, I would have never... Pit Shifter. They were a great band as well, actually. They had some good stuff. I'm going to have to put industrial metal in S tier. I wouldn't have thought that. I wouldn't have said that before. That's quite strange, isn't it? Why is there no groove metal? Can't believe there's no groove metal. What the fuck? What the actual heckety heck? I've got to create one for groove metal. I don't know why that wasn't included on here. That's a gross omission by whoever created this tier list. What an absolute twit. Groove metal for me would go in S tier. I love groove metal. I don't give a shite what anyone says. Machine Head, Pantera, Meshuggah you could put in there as well to a certain extent. White Zombie, Prong, Fear Factory, Crowbar. Did I say Pantera? I think I did. Sepultura had elements of groove in some of their stuff, especially Chaos AD, Lamb of God. Man. Soulfly, I did like some Soulfly. I guess you could put Gojira. Prong, again, they're one of those bands that kind of go through all of these. Chimera. It's another one of those ones where I'm just missing out a ton of shit, isn't it? Fuck's sake. Again, growing up in the 90s, being a teenager in the 90s, groove metal was a huge part of my upbringing. So groove metal goes in S tier, and I'm putting it at the top of S tier for now. Will it get overtaken? Who knows? Next up, we have melodic death metal. I struggle with melodic death metal, if I'm quite honest with you, because I just do. The most obvious one to me would be Carcass with Heartwork, where they really went from grindcore into death metal, into more melodic death metal, and they really set the template. That is a fucking amazing album. I do love a lot of In Flames. Children of Bodom had some great stuff. Arch Enemy I've always been a bit hit and miss with. I did love the Angela era. I'm not a fan of Elysia. I did listen to their new album. It's okay. It's all right. I mean, having said that, going through some, I do enjoy some melodic death metal, but I don't know. It's when I want something that heavy, I want it all the way heavy. So I don't mind it. I'm gonna put it. I'll put it behind doom metal in B tier. I do prefer it to Djent and Deathcore. Yeah, that seems right to me. Metalcore. if that is your real name. The most obvious one would be Killswitch Engage. I think Killswitch are great. I think they've done some amazing stuff and got stuff like Trivium. I've never quite got into them. They've never really... They've never hit that spot. I've got a lot of respect for them. I've said a lot of times before. I've seen them live quite a few times supporting other bands. I saw them getting absolutely canned by the Slayer crowd years ago. They were getting shit thrown at them, and fair play to them, they didn't back down. They just carried on playing right the way through and really went through it. So I do have respect for them, but I can't really listen to the band. Bullet for My Valentine I've never dug. Never really enjoyed them at all. It's deathcore. Metalcore is not really... I'd put it above deathcore in terms of, because the bands that I do like, I do quite enjoy a lot, but yeah, overall it's not something that I go to a lot. Okay, this is going to piss some people off. Nu metal, one of the most hated subgenres. I don't hate it as much as others. Undeniably, there's a lot of shit. There was a lot of shit bands from nu metal, but there were a lot of great ones. The most obvious would be Korn. Their first 4 albums were absolute bangers, I thought. Limp Bizkit, I don't hate them. I'm sorry, that's going to piss a lot of people off. When I see them playing live, when I see videos of them playing live right now, they just seem like a band to me that's just having a lot of fun. And I'm all about it, man. I got no issue with them. I think some of their stuff's fine. I got no issue with it. Mudvayne I never really got into. POD, System of a Down, I think System of a Down are great. Deftones are fucking great. Cold Chamber, I loved the first album. The rest of it's kind of whatever. Drowning Pool, I couldn't stand that band really. R.I.P. to what's his name. But yeah, just not my thing. Slipknot, when Slipknot are good, they're fucking good. But I've not been so blown away by them as of late. Again, like a lot of these subgenres, there are bands of them that I really do enjoy, but there's a lot that I don't enjoy as well. So what's good in nu metal, I think, is really good, and what's bad, I think, is really bad. I'm actually going to put it in B tier, above melodic death metal. That's going to piss some people off. I do hope it doesn't kick off in the comments. Okay, next up we got post-metal. I guess this would be bands like Converge, Neurosis. What else? Let's have a little look at post-metal bands. Isis, Death Heaven, Jesu, Godflesh. Yeah, I could put Jesu in there. I actually like Jesu. That's Justin K. Broderick's other band outside of Godflesh. I think they've done some incredible stuff. Was it Terminus that was released 2019, 2020 maybe? That was a fucking beautiful album. Really enjoyed that album. I enjoy a lot of post-metal, and I would put post-metal in A tier. I'd put it ahead of Grindcore. I enjoy a lot of post-metal. Okay, so now we're getting into some power metal. I've always struggled with power metal. I really have struggled with power metal a lot. I did like some Dragon Force. I think some Sabaton is actually pretty cool. They're a kind of laughable band in many ways, but I do enjoy some of their stuff. But I'm not even going to bother defending this too much. I'm not a huge power metal fan. It goes down in D tier. I'll put it above folk metal. But yeah, not a favourite for me. Progressive metal. This is an interesting one because what I say that for every fucking one. I don't think any of them have. Is anything I've said been interesting? I'm not convinced it has. Progressive metal, I think I would put progressive metal quite high actually. The problem with progressive metal, when it can be woefully pretentious and woefully just, we get it, you're a great player, but when it's done right, it can be done so right. I do like some Dream Theater, not a huge fan. Opeth, I think, are incredible. Mastodon, one of my favourite bands. Between the Buried and Me, I think they're great. I think they're a fucking amazing band. Porcupine Tree, I'm a huge Steven Wilson fan. Of course, you can take this all the way back to bands like Rush, who I think are fucking incredible. I love Rush. King Crimson, if you want to even go further back. I mean, I wouldn't class that as progressive metal, but it's definitely the start of it all. Voivod, fucking awesome. Do you know what? Yes, progressive metal, I think for me, will actually have to Now that I think about it, I think progressive metal goes in S tier for me. I listen to it a lot. I really do listen to it a lot. Symphonic metal. Oh, this is... this is... this unfortunately for me, this is kind of... It's with power metal and folk metal for me. In terms of... It just... There's something so cheesy about it, I can't really get into it. I mean... let's go through some of the bands. I mean, I guess Nightwish, Within Temptation, stuff like that. I do enjoy some Nightwish, actually. I think some of their stuff's great. I think Floor Jansen, I think she's their best singer, to be honest with you. Is it Tarja, who was I think there was 2 singers before her, but I think Floor Jansen is fucking amazing. Within Temptation, I never really got into... Yeah, looking through some of these lists, I would put symphonic metal above power metal and folk metal, but again, it's just one of those ones that it doesn't do much for me, to be honest. Thrash metal up next, and I think this has to go in S tier for me, and it has to go right at the top. I am going to put groove metal right at the top because it was just that's what I grew up with. That's the stuff that was really going around when I was the right age for it. But thrash metal is... It's in... There's elements of thrash in every metal subgenre that I do love. And a lot of the groove metal bands were influenced by the thrash bands and took it on in a different way. Of course, Pantera would be the most obvious in that regard. But in terms of thrash metal, Slayer, one of my favourite bands of all time. I fucking love Slayer. You all know my love for Metallica. I know you couldn't call Metallica a thrash band after a certain point, but you've got to admit those albums were fucking good. The ones that the thrash albums that are out there are absolute killers. Anthrax, I'm not a huge fan, but I'm not as down on them as I made out in my Bands I Hate video. I do respect Anthrax. Megadeth, I love the first 6 albums. I do struggle with his voice. But there's so many great bands. Exodus, I've really started digging Exodus. I've really started to dig that band. Violence, of course, Rob Flynn's first band, or at least the one before. Testament, Sepultura, and then we got the German stuff. Creator did some fucking amazing albums. Zentrix, Flotsam and Jetsam, and of course you got the more modern stuff like Power Trip. I mean, I'm interested to see what they do since the passing of Riley, but Power Trip had some great stuff. Thrash metal has to go at the top of S tier. Not only do I love thrash metal, but it's so prevalent in all the other styles of metal that I enjoy. Hugely influential for death metal and black metal. They kind of went off and branched off and did it in different ways, but thrash metal's great. How can you not have that anything other than S tier? And then traditional metal. I presume by traditional metal this means my first thought was the new wave of British heavy metal, but I mean, I guess you'd have to have Sabbath and all those sorts of bands in there as well. And for me, that'd have to be an S tier as well. I'm gonna put it behind thrash metal because I do, like I said at the beginning, this isn't about the importance or the otherwise it would have been a very easy one to do. But traditional metal, thrash metal and groove metal just pips it to the post for me because I just enjoy listening to that stuff so much more because it's just that much more aggressive. But traditional metal, again, there is nothing else without traditional metal. I love Maiden, I love Priest, I fucking love Black Sabbath. Absolutely incredible band. I mean, that's what I'm thinking when I think of traditional metal. I know there's all the proto metal bands that you could start including in there as well, but fucking great. Saxon had some bangers. I love a lot of Dio. Motorhead were fucking incredible. Angel Witch, Merciful Fate, so many great fucking bands. So yeah, I think that works for me. Yeah. I'm very surprised at industrial metal. It's kind of weird. Like, I've never really analysed subgenres before and kind of thought about what it is that I really like, but I really do like a lot of industrial metal and progressive metal. Groove metal is I fucking love groove. I fucking love groove metal. It's what I was grown up on. I don't give two toots what you think of it. Death metal. I've got a strong feeling that death metal and black metal could very much be in S tier pretty soon. To be honest, I'm almost tempted to put them in S tier because I do listen to that a hell of a lot now, and I really, really do enjoy it. But yeah, I'm sticking with that. Awkward bit again where we do the ending. Everything comes to an end. Every good thing comes to an end. Shit things also come to an end. Which one is it, guys? Oh. Right. Fuck you then.